In this episode of the Villain's Corner, we will go over the story of Varimathras, one of the more prominent dreadlords in Warcraft's story, and who was even part of the Horde for quite a while. Now, Varimathras' first appearance comes after Archimonde is summoned into Azeroth by Kel'Thuzad, and Archimonde immediately takes control of the Scourge and places them in the control of the three dreadlords, one of whom is Varimathras. While Archimonde went off to Mount Hyjal to try and steal the magic from the World Tree, the three dreadlords just kind of hanged out in Lordaeron, until Arthas showed up to tell them that Archimonde was dead. The dreadlords then ran away, as Arthas was too much for them to handle, and escaped to the Plaguelands to plot their next move. Varimathras had a plan for retaking the city from Arthas. He knew the hold Arthas had over the undead was weakening, so he secretly met up with Sylvanas, who at the time was one of Arthas' most used servants, and told her that the Lich King's power was weakened to the point that she should be able to rebel against Arthas, and that he and his other dreadlords would cause a commotion to separate Arthas from his army. Sylvanas, very eager for revenge, gladly accepted the offer and set up an ambush to kill Arthas the moment he was alone. And true to his word, Varimathras set the plan in motion perfectly, and Sylvanas was moments from killing Arthas when Kel'Thuzad came in and single-handedly saved his life. But all of this was still a net plus to Varimathras' plan, as Arthas was forced to return to Northrend. More and more undead were abandoning the Scourge and joining Sylvanas' army, and Kel'Thuzad was forced to retreat to the Plaguelands with what little army he had left. Varimathras then went to Sylvanas again and offered her and her people a place in his army, as they planned on taking over the whole world. Sylvanas refused, as she didn't want to give away her freedom again after just getting it back. Varimathras then told her that that made her an enemy of the Burning Legion, and they do best well to stay out of his way. Sylvanas then went to work and gathered all of her strong undead, and then had her banshees possess the strongest thing she could find, and ordered an attack on Varimathras and his men, easily and quickly defeating him. Right before Sylvanas was going to execute Varimathras, he begged for his life, saying he could be of use to her, and he knew the other dreadlords' plans and locations. Sylvanas agreed that this would indeed be very useful information to have, as the other dreadlords would grow more weary of her after the defeat of Varimathras. So Sylvanas and Varimathras teamed up, and worked together to reclaim the rest of Lordaeron from the other dreadlords. Their first target was Deathrock, who had enslaved a large number of human soldiers. So, utilizing similar tactics, Sylvanas had her banshees possess a number of human scouts and infiltrate his base. Then, while they all slept, she quickly had his bases destroyed one after another, and before they realized what happened, Sylvanas had Deathrock killed, which freed the humans from his mind control. The leader of this human army, Garithos, then reluctantly agreed to work with Sylvanas to reclaim Lordaeron. With Balnazzar on full alert after the other two dreadlords were defeated so quickly, Sylvanas attacked Lordaeron on two sides with hers and the human army. Ultimately, this attack was too much for Balnazzar to overcome, and he was defeated in a timely manner as well. But before killing him, Sylvanas instead ordered Varimathras to deal the killing blow. Varimathras hesitated though, and told Sylvanas that it was forbidden for dreadlords to kill one another. Sylvanas told him that she needed one last test of his loyalty, so Varimathras eventually killed Balnazzar. Garithos then told Sylvanas to get out of his city, to which Sylvanas told Varimathras to kill him too, which he did with much less hesitation. Sylvanas then declared that her and her people would be called the Forsaken from now on, and her and Varimathras went to work in building the Undercity. Sylvanas and Varimathras ruled the Forsaken with almost equal power in its early days. There was a rumor common amongst the Forsaken that there were two factions in Undercity, those loyal to Sylvanas and those who served Varimathras. Although, officially, he was directly under Sylvanas in the chain of command, and Varimathras absolutely was working the whole time to try and take control of the Undercity for himself. Firstly, he kept in contact with Balnazzar, who had actually faked his death when Varimathras was ordered to kill him, and went off and took control of the Scarlet Crusade. The Scarlet Crusade was in constant war with all undead, whether or not they were Scourge or Forsaken, and Varimathras was in charge of dealing with the Scarlet Crusade threat to Undercity. So with him working directly with both sides of the conflict, it was more or less a distraction to make it seem like he was loyal and trying to help, but actually, he was using the conflicts as a way to slowly gather his faction and prepare for a rebellion. Then, many years later, the Lich King finally woke back up and launched a second Scourge invasion across the world with a new plague. Luckily though, one of Sylvanas' apothecaries named Putris was able to find a cure to this plague, and with his help, they successfully stopped the second Scourge invasion before it could get too out of hand. For finding a cure to the plague, Putris was promoted to the Grand Apothecary, and even got to accompany Sylvanas to a meeting with all the Horde leaders to discuss how to deal with the Scourge, which would lead to the Northrend campaign. He was also tasked with perfecting the Forsaken Blight, a chemical weapon that the Forsaken secretly use all the time but pretend not to. That is potent enough to work on both the living and undead. And with Putris in charge of the chemical division, he was able to perfect the new Blight and got it ready for use in the upcoming war with the Lich King. Putris, however, was loyal to Varimathras. With the majority of the Horde forces, as well as Sylvanas and Northrend, and Putris in charge of the new super deadly and efficient chemical weapon, the timing was perfect for Varimathras' plan to go into action. So, during the Wrathgate, with both the Alliance and Horde working together to take out the Lich King, all three being enemies of Varimathras, they were all in a nice, convenient location to unleash the new plague and deal a crippling blow to everyone at once. So, Putris rolled out his catapults and unleashed the plague, killing all the Alliance and Horde soldiers caught in the explosions, as well as weakening the Lich King and causing him to retreat.
Did you think we had forgotten? Did you think we had forgiven? Behold now the terrible vengeance of the Forsaken! Sylvanas. Death to the Scourge! And death to the living! This isn't over.
At the same time, Varimathras took control of the Undercity and blocked it off, while he attempted to summon a Legion army to assist him. What Varimathras probably didn't plan on was just how much the Wrathgate disaster pissed off both factions. Both the Alliance and Horde immediately returned to Undercity and fought through the city to reclaim it, with the Horde going in the front and the Alliance through the back. Varimathras was trying his best to summon, well, something into Azeroth. We don't actually know for sure, but it might have been some version of Sargeras. But whatever the case, Thrall and Sylvanas managed to kill him before he succeeds. Then, back in the Twisting Nether, as punishment for failing in Undercity, Varimathras was sent to the Sisters of Shivara for torture, and was presumably tortured non-stop until the Army of Light broke into Antorus and faced him. Upon facing the Horde or Alliance, he has a different speech for both of them. For Alliance players, he will basically tell them that she has already planted the seeds of their downfall, with she most likely referring to Sylvanas. For Horde players, he will tell them that Sylvanas probably tricked them into giving her the title of War Chief willingly. Also, if he wipes the group, one of his lines is, "Better that you died here, where she cannot claim you." All of which to show that Varimathras holds Sylvanas in very high regard, and probably knows about some plan that she made from way back when they still worked together. But since he was deep in the Twisting Nether when he was killed for the second time, he is now dead, which marks the end of the story of Varimathras. And that's it for the Villains Corner segment on Varimathras. If you like the Villains Corner series, maybe consider supporting it on Patreon to help me pay Rachel for all of her amazing artwork that makes this series possible, as well as having a chance to pick the next topic of the Villains Corner. Kel'Thas will be one of the few villains in this series who started off as a good guy, but later turned villain due to unfortunate circumstances and a few poor